The ocean covers more than 70% of this planet, and most of it will kill you. Not all at once, not necessarily dramatically, but the ocean is not a passive environment. It has currents that pull swimmers out to sea without warning. It has passages that have sunk hundreds of ships over centuries. It has underwater sinkholes that have swallowed experienced divers who went in knowing the risks and did not come back out. It has stretches of water where the weather can shift from calm to catastrophic in less time than it takes to sail away from danger. We talk about the ocean the way we talk about a beautiful thing. We build resorts along its edges. We photograph its sunsets. We swim in it on vacation without thinking very carefully about what is happening 20 feet below us, or what the current is doing at the edge of the sandbar, or what is in the water around the headland just past the point the lifeguard can see. The places on this list are not dangerous because of mythology or bad luck. They are dangerous because of documented, measurable physical facts. Currents that reach speeds no swimmer can fight. Water temperatures cold enough to cause incapacitation within minutes. Passages that have sent ships to the bottom for centuries. Populations of animals with the capacity to kill in seconds. Underwater environments that disorient even the most experienced divers and do not give second chances. Some of these places are visited by tourists every year despite everything on this list. Some of them have warning signs that people walk past. Some of them have body counts that have been building for decades. These are the 15 most dangerous places in the ocean. And the most important thing to understand about all of them is that the danger is real. It is documented, and it does not make exceptions. The Drake Passage, between South America and Antarctica. The Drake Passage is 500 miles of open water between Cape Horn at the southern tip of South America and the South Shetland Islands of Antarctica. It is the shortest crossing from any landmass to Antarctica. It is also consistently described by sailors as one of the most violent stretches of ocean on the planet. Three things combine in the Drake Passage to create conditions found almost nowhere else. First, it is the only place on Earth where ocean water can flow continuously around the entire globe without being interrupted by land, creating a current of enormous volume and speed. Second, it sits at a latitude where winds are unimpeded across thousands of miles of open ocean before funneling through the narrower passage between the two landmasses, building energy that produces waves reaching 40 to 50 feet in severe conditions. Third, icebergs drift through the passage from the Antarctic, adding collision risk to weather risk. Sailors who have made the crossing describe two versions of the Drake Passage: the Drake Lake, which is what they call it on calm days when the swell is manageable and the wind is low, and the Drake Shake, which is what they call everything else. Experienced sailors describe the Drake Shake as a passage where a ship can be rolling 30 to 40 degrees side to side in waves that keep arriving one after another for days. People are injured simply moving around the vessel. Objects that are not tied down become dangerous projectiles. And the water temperature, below freezing in practice, means that survival time in the event of a person going overboard is measured in minutes. The Drake has sunk ships across centuries of maritime history. The legendary Cape Horn, which sits at the southern extreme of South America, where the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans collide, earned a reputation so extreme that sailors who had rounded it were allowed to wear a gold earring as a mark of what they had survived. Many ships attempting the rounding did not make it. You do not swim in the Drake Passage, you survive it. The Blue Hole of Dahab, Egypt. On the edge of the Red Sea, near the Egyptian resort town of Dahab in the Sinai Peninsula, there is an underwater sinkhole known as the Blue Hole. It is 984 feet wide and drops approximately 330 feet before opening into a deeper underwater cave system. It has a coral arch at around 180 feet of depth that connects the main shaft to the open sea through a narrow tunnel. It is known informally as the Divers' Cemetery. The exact number of people who have died in the Blue Hole of Dahab is disputed. Estimates range from 130 to over 200 deaths, making it one of the deadliest dive sites in the world. The Egyptian authorities do not publish official counts, and many deaths are believed to go unrecorded. A plaque mounted near the entrance to the site lists names of divers who died there. It has been updated multiple times. The danger is not obvious from the surface. The entry to the Blue Hole is easy. The visibility is excellent. The coral is beautiful. The water is calm and clear. These qualities attract divers of all experience levels, including many who do not have the training for what the site actually demands. The danger is the arch. The coral arch at 180 feet of depth connects the Blue Hole to the open sea. Reaching it requires descending significantly deeper than recreational diving limits. At that depth, nitrogen narcosis, which causes a state of disorientation and impaired judgment that feels, to the diver experiencing it, like nothing is wrong, makes decisions unreliable. Divers who attempt the arch and find themselves running low on air or disoriented have very little time and very little margin to correct their situation before it becomes unsurvivable. Many of the divers who have died in the blue hole were experienced. Some were attempting the arch specifically. Others made navigation errors in a site that looks simpler than it is. Some were found in positions suggesting they had become disoriented and been unable to find the surface. The site is still open. Divers still descend into it every day. The plaque at the entrance keeps getting longer. The Bering Sea, between Alaska and Russia. The Bering Sea is the body of water between Alaska and Russia, connecting the Pacific Ocean to the Arctic Ocean through the Bering Strait. It is shallow, averaging about 100 feet in depth across much of its area. It is extremely cold, with water temperatures between 34 and 41 degrees Fahrenheit. It is subject to violent weather that forms with little warning, and it is one of the most commercially important fishing regions in the world, which means it is also one of the most dangerous places to work. Commercial fishing in the Bering Sea consistently ranks among the deadliest occupations in the United States. The Discovery Channel series Deadliest Catch brought the reality of Bering Sea fishing to a broad audience, but the danger was documented long before television. Fishing vessels operating in the Bering Sea face a combination of threats that individually would be manageable and collectively are not. The cold water means that a person who goes overboard has minutes of functional consciousness before hypothermia begins shutting down the body. The shallow depth means that swells generated in the deep open Pacific undergo rapid and violent transformation as they move into shallower water, piling energy into shorter, steeper waves. Ice forms on vessel surfaces in cold weather, adding weight to decks and rails that can alter a ship's stability. Storms form and intensify quickly. In 1989, the Vestfjord fishing vessel went down in the Bering Sea with 6 crew. In 1990, the Aleutian Enterprise was lost with 9 crew. In 2001, the 92-foot trawler Arctic Rose was lost with all 15 crew aboard. These are not isolated cases in a century of Bering Sea fishing. They are entries in a list that is much longer. The Bering Strait, the narrow channel at the north end of the Bering Sea between Alaska and Russia, presents an additional hazard. Strong and volatile currents push through the strait, moving ice as well as water. Shipping traffic through the strait has increased as Arctic ice has retreated, bringing more vessels into an area where navigation errors have always had severe consequences. New Smyrna Beach, Florida, United States. New Smyrna Beach is a small coastal city in Volusia County, Florida, with warm water, reliable surf, and a relaxed beach culture that draws visitors from across the Southeast every year. It is also the most dangerous stretch of coastline for shark bites in the world. Volusia County has recorded more shark bites than any other county on Earth, year after year, in data tracked by the Florida Museum's International Shark Attack File. New Smyrna Beach sits at the center of that record. Studies by multiple research organizations have named it the single deadliest beach for shark encounters in the United States and, by extension, the world. A 2021 research study found that New Smyrna Beach accounted for more than twice the shark bites of any other beach in the United States. The reasons are environmental rather than mysterious. The beach sits at the mouth of Ponce Inlet, where the Indian River Lagoon drains into the Atlantic Ocean. The inlet is a rich feeding ground for the bait fish that sharks follow. The murky water near the inlet makes it harder for sharks to distinguish between their prey and humans in the water. The surf conditions that make the beach popular for surfers are exactly the conditions that bring sharks in closer to shore. Bull sharks, which are among the most aggressive shark species and can survive in brackish water, are common in the area. Most bites at New Smyrna Beach are not fatal. They are typically what researchers call investigatory bite incidents, where a shark investigates something with its mouth and releases it, but the rate of encounters is extraordinary. On peak summer days with ideal surf conditions, researchers believe the vast majority of surfers in the water are within a few feet of a shark at some point during their session, whether they know it or not. The beach is not closed. Warnings are posted. The surfers keep coming. The Strait of Magellan, Chile. At the southern tip of South America, where the continent ends and the ocean takes over, there is a narrow passage between the mainland and the island of Tierra del Fuego called the Strait of Magellan. Ferdinand Magellan found it in 1520 while looking for a route between the Atlantic and the Pacific Oceans. What he found was roughly 310 miles of narrow, winding waterway through mountains, glaciers, and channels that made navigation demanding in ways no chart he had could fully prepare him for. The Atlantic and Pacific Oceans meet at the western end of the strait, but they do not do so peacefully. The two oceans sit at different average heights. Where they meet in the strait, this difference drives churning currents that have been sinking ships since the first Europeans attempted the passage. The wind funnels through the narrow channels between the mountains of Patagonia and Tierra del Fuego, reaching speeds that have no warning and no gradual buildup. The geography creates unpredictable conditions that experienced navigators still treat with caution. Isaac Lemaire discovered the route around Cape Horn in 1615 specifically because he was looking for an alternative to the Strait of Magellan that was too dangerous. The route around Cape Horn, which became the dominant passage for sailing ships for centuries, was considered safer than the strait itself, which is remarkable given that Cape Horn is one of the most feared stretches of ocean in the world. The straits are still navigated today, primarily by cruise ships taking passengers to see the glaciers and by cargo vessels. Modern navigation technology, satellite weather forecasting, and powerful engines have made the transit dramatically safer than it was for centuries. But the currents and the weather have not changed. The strait is the same one that Magellan feared in 1520. It is the same one that sank ships for 400 years before modern technology gave captains a fighting chance. Gansbaai, South Africa. The town of Gansbaai sits on the coast of the Western Cape province of South Africa, roughly 100 miles east of Cape Town. It is a small fishing village surrounded by extraordinarily rich marine habitat. In the channel between the mainland and Dyer Island, a rocky outcrop where thousands of Cape fur seals live and breed, the concentration of great white sharks is higher than almost anywhere else on Earth. That channel is called Shark Alley. Gansbaai is known as the great white shark capital of the world. Great white sharks aggregate in the waters here in numbers that researchers consistently describe as among the highest documented anywhere on the planet. The seals on Dyer Island are the primary reason. Great whites hunt seals. Tens of thousands of seals living on an island a short distance from the mainland creates a permanent feeding ground, and the sharks have followed it for as long as anyone has records. Cage diving with great white sharks became a commercial industry in Gansbaai, with operators lowering tourists in metal cages into the water while sharks investigated the bait and the cages beside it. The industry brought significant revenue to the town. It also drew ongoing debate about whether the practice of baiting sharks near the shore contributed to more aggressive behavior in animals that learned to associate human presence with food. In recent years, a phenomenon has further shifted the danger around Gansbaai. Orcapods moving into the region have begun hunting great white sharks, targeting their livers with a precision that has been documented on film. The presence of the orcas has caused great white sharks to abandon the waters around Dyer Island entirely for extended periods, which has disrupted the cage diving industry, but has also altered the regional marine ecosystem in ways scientists are still studying. The waters around Gansbaai are not swimming waters. They are documented apex predator territory. The industry built around that fact does not make the sharks less dangerous. It just means more people choose to be near them. The North Channel, between Ireland and Scotland. The North Channel is a 21-mile stretch of water between Northern Ireland and Scotland. It looks, on a map, like a relatively modest crossing. At 21 miles wide, it is not far. On a clear day, you can see the other side from the shore. It is considered the most difficult open water swim in the world. The North Channel is one of 7 channels that make up the Ocean's 7 swimming challenge, the marathon swimming equivalent of climbing the 7 summits. Of all 7, the North Channel has the lowest completion rate and the most brutal conditions. The water temperature sits around 54 degrees Fahrenheit in summer, the warmest it gets. The currents are powerful and unpredictable, generated by the tidal flows between the Atlantic and the Irish Sea. The weather changes with almost no warning, shifting from manageable to dangerous within an hour. The lion's mane jellyfish, the largest jellyfish species in the world, lives in the North Channel in substantial numbers. Their tentacles can extend to more than 100 feet in length. A swimmer crossing the North Channel will typically be stung multiple times. The stings cause intense burning pain and in severe cases can cause anaphylactic reactions. Swimmers have reported being unable to see anything in the water around them because of the density of jellyfish during certain tidal conditions. The swimmers who attempt the North Channel train for years. They use specific nutrition protocols, cold adaptation programs, and mental preparation for conditions that most trained athletes cannot endure. The crossing takes between 9 and 14 hours for successful swimmers, spent in water cold enough to cause hypothermia, surrounded by jellyfish, fighting currents that can push them miles off course, hoping the weather holds. Most attempts fail. The North Channel keeps the title it has earned. The Red Triangle, California, United States. Off the coast of Central California, in the cold waters dense with kelp between Bodega Bay to the north, the Farallon Islands to the west, and Big Sur to the south, there is a roughly triangular area of ocean that contains the highest concentration of great white shark attacks in the United States. It is called the Red Triangle. The reason the sharks are here is biology. The cold, upwelled waters of the California Current are extraordinarily productive. They support massive populations of fish, which support populations of seals, sea lions, elephant seals, and sea otters. Elephant seals, which are among the preferred prey of large great white sharks, breed on beaches throughout the region, including on the Farallon Islands and at Ano Nuevo State Park on the mainland. A great white shark that has reached the size needed to hunt large marine mammals follows the prey, and the prey is here in abundance. According to the Florida Museum's International Shark Attack File, approximately 38% of all unprovoked great white shark attacks in the United States occur within the Red Triangle. The attacks are not uniformly distributed. They cluster around the areas where seals and sea lions concentrate, particularly during pupping seasons when the animals are in the water in large numbers. Surfers and swimmers in wetsuits at the surface can, in low visibility conditions, produce a silhouette very similar to that of a seal. Most attacks in the Red Triangle are investigatory rather than predatory. A shark bites and releases when it determines the target is not what it expected. Most victims survive, not all of them do, and the bite of a great white shark, investigatory or otherwise, is capable of causing catastrophic injury in a single contact. The beaches within the Red Triangle are among the most visited in California. The warnings are posted. The sharks were here before the warnings. Reunion Island, Indian Ocean. The island of Reunion is a French overseas territory in the Indian Ocean, east of Madagascar and southwest of Mauritius. It is a volcanic island of dramatic landscapes with peaks reaching above 10,000 feet, dense rainforest, UNESCO World Heritage terrain, and an ocean coastline that draws surfers, divers, and swimmers. Between 2011 and 2021, Reunion recorded 19 shark attacks. 8 of them were fatal. To put those numbers in context, in the same period, Hawaii, which is also known for shark activity and receives far more ocean users annually, recorded 3 fatalities. The rate of fatal shark attacks per ocean user in Reunion is among the highest of any location on Earth. Bull sharks and tiger sharks are both present in the waters around Reunion in significant numbers. Bull sharks in particular are associated with the island's elevated attack rate. They are an adaptable and aggressive species capable of hunting in murky, shallow water close to shore. The specific geography of Reunion's coastline and the currents around the island create conditions that concentrate sharks in areas used by humans. Swimming is officially banned in many parts of Reunion as a direct result of the shark attack rate. Surfing restrictions have been implemented in zones where attacks have been most frequent. These restrictions are not suggestions. They are legal prohibitions enforced by the local authorities following attacks that killed people who were experienced in the water and were following what they understood to be reasonable precautions. Despite the bans, attacks have continued. The conditions that bring sharks close to the island's shores are not under human control. The regulations manage human behavior. They do not change what is in the water. Boa Viagem Beach, Brazil. Boa Viagem Beach sits in the city of Recife on the northeastern coast of Brazil. It is a long, beautiful urban beach lined with hotels, restaurants, and apartment buildings, visited daily by residents and tourists in one of Brazil's most popular coastal cities. Before 1992, shark attacks at Boa Viagem were rare. Then something changed. In the 1990s, the construction of a major port facility just south of Recife disturbed the habitat of several shark species that fed and reproduced in the area. The sharks were displaced from their established territory and began hunting in different areas, closer to the city's coastline. Bull sharks, which are highly adaptable and capable of hunting in shallow water near shore, moved into the waters around Boa Viagem in numbers that had not been seen before. In less than a decade following the port construction, Boa Viagem recorded 47 shark attacks. 16 of them were fatal. The attack rate made international news. Signs were posted warning swimmers of the danger. Portions of the beach were officially closed to swimming, The warnings were, in some cases, explicitly ignored by residents for whom the beach had been a normal part of daily life before the attacks began. The situation at Boa Viagem is one of the clearest documented cases in the world of human infrastructure directly causing a change in shark behavior that cost human lives. The port was built, the sharks moved, people died, the beach is still there, the sharks are still there. Cape Horn, Chile. Cape Horn is the southernmost point of the Americas, a 391-foot-high rocky headland on Horn Island at the southern tip of Chile's Tierra del Fuego archipelago. It is not a beach or a cove or a passage. It is a cliff at the end of the world, around which centuries of sailors attempted to navigate from the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific. The waters around Cape Horn are considered among the most dangerous in the world. The convergence of the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans creates conditions of extreme unpredictability. Waves generated across thousands of miles of open Southern Ocean reach Cape Horn with their full energy intact, and then interact with the shallow continental shelf in ways that produce massive, steep, irregular seas. Wind speeds at Cape Horn regularly exceed 70 miles per hour. Icebergs drift through the area from the south. Fog reduces visibility to zero. The death toll associated with Cape Horn is uncountable across the centuries of sailing history, during which it was the primary route between the world's two largest oceans. It is estimated that more than 800 ships have been lost rounding the Horn. The sailors who survived a rounding were allowed to wear a gold earring in the left ear. Those who had rounded both Cape Horn and the Cape of Good Hope in South Africa could wear a ring in each ear. These traditions reflect how seriously the maritime world treated the achievement of surviving these passages. Cape Horn is still rounded today by sailing vessels in races and by commercial ships when the Panama Canal is unavailable or unsuitable. Modern weather forecasting, satellite navigation, and better ship design have reduced but not eliminated the danger. The water is the same. The wind is the same. The Cape has not become less serious because the technology around it has improved. The Skeleton Coast, Namibia. The Skeleton Coast stretches along the Atlantic coastline of Namibia in southwestern Africa, running roughly 1,000 miles from the Orange River in the south to the Angolan border in the north. The Namibian government has protected the northern section as a national park that is closed to all but guided tours. The name came from the whalers and seal hunters who worked these waters in the 19th century. The Bushmen of the region called it the land god made in anger. Portuguese sailors called it the gates of hell. These names were earned. The Skeleton Coast sits where the cold Benguela Current flows northward from Antarctica along the African coast. Where it meets the warmer air of the Namib Desert, dense fog forms. Fog that, before modern navigation, made the coastline invisible to approaching ships until they were already in the surf. The coast is rocky, and the ocean floor is irregular, with reefs and underwater features that tear at the hulls of vessels caught close to shore. Strong currents run parallel and perpendicular to the coast, pulling anything in the water away from land and into the open Atlantic. Ships that foundered on the Skeleton Coast could not be reached from the land. The desert behind the coast is one of the harshest environments in the world, extending hundreds of miles before reaching any human settlement. Sailors who made it ashore alive faced conditions that were likely to kill them before any rescue could reach them. The bones of ships and sometimes their crews have been found on these beaches for centuries, giving the coast the name that has defined it ever since. The Skeleton Coast is still visited. Small aircraft land in the park on organized tours. The beaches are walked, but the ocean remains off limits for swimming, and the conditions that earned the coast its name remain unchanged. The current is still there. The fog still forms. The Atlantic still runs along the edge of the desert the same way it always has. The Maelstrom, Norwegian Sea. Off the northwest coast of Norway, in the Vestfjorden between the Lofoten Islands and the Norwegian mainland, there is a tidal whirlpool that inspired centuries of seafaring terror and gave the English language one of its most dramatic words. The Maelstrom, known in Norwegian as Moskstraumen, is a complex of tidal currents generated by the interaction of the Atlantic tidal flows with the irregular seafloor topography of the Vestfjorden. When conditions align, the resulting current reaches speeds of up to 20 knots, which is roughly 23 miles per hour. At those speeds, the water forms a roiling, churning surface that can reach swells of 3 feet within the current itself, even in otherwise calm sea conditions. In rough weather, the conditions become significantly more violent. The Maelstrom was documented by traders sailing the Norwegian coast long before it entered European literature. Edgar Allan Poe wrote a story set in it called A Descent into the Maelstrom. Jules Verne referenced it. Herman Melville drew on it. The word itself passed into English as a general term for any overwhelming, chaotic, destructive force. The actual danger of the maelstrom today is primarily to small vessels. Modern ships with powerful engines can navigate the area safely outside the most extreme tidal conditions. But smaller boats, fishing vessels, and sailing craft can be caught in the current and lose steerage. The speed of the water is the primary hazard. At 20 knots, a current is not something a small engine can overcome. A vessel caught broadside in the maelstrom's peak flow is at the mercy of water moving faster than most of the boats traveling in it. No one swims in the maelstrom. The question is never asked because the answer is obvious. Bikini Atoll, Marshall Islands. Bikini Atoll is a ring of coral islands in the central Pacific Ocean, part of the Marshall Islands. It is one of the most remote places on Earth. Its beaches are white, its lagoon is clear and blue. The visibility underwater is extraordinary. The coral formations are spectacular. The marine life is abundant. The lagoon also contains elevated levels of radioactive cesium-137 from 23 nuclear weapons tests conducted there by the United States between 1946 and 1958. The nuclear tests on Bikini Atoll include the Castle Bravo test of 1954, which was the largest nuclear weapon ever detonated by the United States, with a yield of 15 megatons, roughly 1,000 times more powerful than the bomb dropped on Hiroshima. The test was significantly larger than predicted. The fallout spread across a vast area of the Pacific, contaminating the crew of a Japanese fishing vessel 80 miles away and causing acute radiation sickness in the inhabitants of nearby atolls who were not evacuated in time. The Bikini Atoll people were relocated in 1946 to allow the tests to begin. They were told they would be able to return. They have not been able to return permanently. The soil of the island still contains elevated concentrations of radioactive cesium. Fruit and vegetables grown in the local soil would accumulate enough radiation to be unsafe to eat in normal quantities. The fish in the lagoon have been found to contain elevated radioactive levels. The United States government has paid compensation to the Bikini people and their descendants. The islands remain largely uninhabited. Bikini Atoll was named a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2010. It can be visited by scuba divers under controlled conditions because the sunken fleet from the nuclear tests, including the USS Saratoga, and several other warships deliberately placed in the lagoon as test targets, is one of the most remarkable wreck dive sites in the world. The radioactivity in the water itself is considered low enough for brief visits, but the food is still contaminated. The soil is still contaminated. The people whose home it was are still unable to live there safely. No amount of remarkable underwater scenery changes what was done to this place and what that has meant for every living thing that tries to exist in it. Queen's Bath, Kauai, Hawaii, United States. Queen's Bath is a natural tidal pool on the north shore of Kauai in Hawaii, accessible by a 20-minute hike through forest on a trail that begins near the town of Princeville. During the summer months, when the ocean is calm, it is a beautiful, clear pool set in black volcanic rock at the ocean's edge. It was historically used by Hawaiian royalty. Its name reflects that. It is also known locally as the Pool of Death. The reason is seasonal and predictable. During winter months, large North Pacific swells arrive at Kauai's north shore. These swells, which can reach heights of 20 to 30 feet, push directly into the coastline where Queen's Bath sits. The waves surge over the lip of the volcanic rock that normally shelters the pool and crash through it with force. Water that appears calm can transition to violent within seconds when a large set wave arrives. There is almost no warning and almost no time to respond. People have been swept off the rocks at Queen's Bath and into the ocean in these conditions. Some have survived. The water temperature is warm enough to be survivable, but the rocks around the entry point are sharp volcanic formations. The currents pull strongly away from shore, and the surf that swept a person in continues to make getting back onto the rocks impossible. More than 24 people have died at Queen's Bath. Warning signs are posted at the trailhead and at the pool itself. They describe the conditions clearly. They specify that the pool is dangerous and potentially fatal during high surf conditions. They include the number of people who have died there. People walk past them regularly. The pool is not closed. It cannot easily be closed. The trail is on land that has no barrier. Hawaii's public access laws make it difficult to restrict. So the signs remain, the deaths accumulate, and visitors who choose to ignore the warnings face the same physics that claimed everyone before them. The Corryvreckan, Scotland. Between the islands of Jura and Scarba in the Scottish Inner Hebrides, there is a stretch of water approximately 1 mile wide called the Gulf of Corryvreckan. Inside it is the third largest tidal whirlpool in the world. The Corryvreckan forms when the Atlantic tidal flood pushes eastward through the narrow gulf against the underwater topography, which includes a submerged pinnacle of rock rising from a depth of 200 meters to within 29 meters of the surface directly below the whirlpool's center. The water flowing over and around this pinnacle produces a standing wave that can reach heights of 9 meters in peak conditions, and a roaring sound that is audible on calm days from more than 10 miles away. The Royal Navy has classified the Corryvreckan as unnavigable. That is not a warning. It is a classification. They considered it and decided it could not be navigated. The whirlpool regularly reaches current speeds of 8 to 9 knots, which is enough to overpower most small engines and many larger ones in conditions where the whirlpool is active. The writer George Orwell nearly died in the Corryvreckan in 1947, while living on the island of Jura to write his famous novel, 1984. His small boat was caught in the current and capsized. He and his companions survived by clinging to rocks until they were rescued by a lobster boat that happened to pass. The event was not a close call by most accounts. It was a near disaster that could easily have been a complete one. The Corryvreckan can be visited by boat under the right conditions with experienced operators. Kayakers have crossed it in periods between tidal cycles when the whirlpool is temporarily calm. The Royal Navy's classification has not stopped people from trying it. What it reflects is that the Navy assessed the risk, decided it was beyond what could be managed reliably, and put that assessment in writing. That is not the description of somewhere you swim for fun. These 15 places are spread across every ocean and every kind of danger the ocean has to offer. Some will kill you with cold, some will kill you with current, some will kill you with an animal that was hunting long before humans began to treat the ocean as a recreational facility. Some will kill you with physics so basic that warning signs should not be necessary and yet apparently are. The ocean is not hostile. It does not have intentions. It does not make decisions about who it takes and who it releases. It simply operates according to forces that are far larger and far older than anything human civilization has built around them. The danger in every one of these places is real. It is documented. It has names attached to it. People who went into these waters and did not come out left a record that should be enough to answer the question of whether the risk is worth it. For most of these places, the answer is the same. It is not. Which one surprised you the most? Leave it in the comments. And if you want to keep exploring the places on this planet that the rest of the world has not paid enough attention to, subscribe to Parallel Facts. We will keep going.